I've seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away. To go, leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you never run before.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. I am Cammy Black. Joining me this evening over there is Mr. Iain Hay. Good evening,
Good
Iain.
evening, Cammy, and hello, everyone. Tired.
How are you doing, Iain?
Tired, and it's,
Tired.
and it's too warm in here.
Well,
Nothing's going right. I've got a vote. I have
Open the window.
actually. Just at the end, I was like, have I got time to open the window before the credits finish? Aye, go on.
Yeah, you're fine. Liam Burns says he's watching the football tonight.
Well, I can't blame him. It's 0-0 at half time for those watching live. Of course, if you're listening to this on the podcast, the game's already over. So It's either yay or, well, usual.
Well, the usual. I think that's probably why I didn't even realise that was happening tonight, which just goes to show how far behind I've fallen in following Scottish football.
Trying to qualify via the back door.
Always the way. Anyway, we're live at the minute on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and so you can get involved live in the comments. So hello to everybody already. We've got Andy Lone and Alan McDonald in with us. They're obviously not bothered about the football, or they've got us on with the football muted. If anybody's doing that, let us know how the score's going. Chloe Stanton's point, you can do both. I think that is a very good point. Yes.
I won't be able to comment. Because I've got 25 minutes left on my ban, I think.
On your Facebook ban, yes.
I'm in Facebook jail. Because
why are you in Facebook? Tell the listeners and viewers, why are you in Facebook jail, Iain?
Well, dear listeners, so last night I was torn between watching Commando or The Last Boy Scout. They were both on the telly at about 9 o'clock.
Hard choice.
It was. I opted for Commando in the end. But I quoted a line from The Last Boy Scout, which is threatening, but because I didn't put it in quotation marks and said it in reply to a friend, they thought I was directly, genuinely threatening him. So they
threatening who?
My mate Prof. It's
okay.
I was because he made a joke about using a commando line, and I thought that's very clever. So I'll reply with a Last Boy Scout line, and then Facebook doesn't bother. The algorithm doesn't cross-reference quotes with the movies. It's quite a famous movie, The Last Boy Scout. It's like, but he said to the guy, "Touch me again, I'll kill you," and the guy punched him, so he gets up and kills him. It's a great scene. It's very good.
And it was a really good. Yeah, I mean, I'm confused by algorithms. I'm old. I just assumed that Mark Zuckerberg was kind of sat in his big house, automatically like handing out bans. He had some sort of like rolling ledger that he's got on paper that people bring him. He has to kind of sign it off before he jumps in his big pile of money like Scrooge McDuck.
And breaks every bone in his body.
If you are watching live, hello, get involved in the comments and we'll pick out the best ones on the night. You can also listen to us afterwards. You don't have to watch this live. You can listen afterwards on any normal podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Acast. We're also on Amazon Music. Apparently, if you say, hello, Alexa, play Scottish Rugby Podcast, it plays us, which I'm delighted about. I think if you say play the official
that,
Scottish Rugby
corporation.
Podcast, I don't know what happens if you say play the official Scottish Rugby Podcast, whether it still picks up Scottish Rugby Podcast and plays us, which would be hilarious. You can also sign up for our Patreon for as little as £3 a month, and you get ad-free versions of the podcast. We've also started doing mini versions of the podcast where I basically take out all this stuff at the front where we talk about football and why Ian's been banned from Facebook again, and we just cut straight to the rugby. So you don't get things like Hands in the Ruck or Where's Dougie Donnelly. You just tend to get whatever the chat of the day was rugby-wise. So some people were asking for that, so we thought we'll stick it on the Patreon because it takes me another kind of half an hour to sort out. So for £3 a month, you can get that. £5 a month, you get your name read out on the podcast as an extra thank you. You can pay above £5 a month. Someone, Hamish Allen, paid €6. Now, I have no idea whether that's £3 or £5 these days. I'm going to assume it's a £5. So
I think it'll be a £5.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Hamish, for your support.
It's probably like £5.20 or something.
I know we're probably on the up there. So thank you very much, Hamish. I assume he lives somewhere that does euros, and so Patreon's made him pay in euros. That's fair enough. Dougie Lowe has also paid £5. So hello to Dougie. He's also joined our super secret social media group as well. So there's some quite nice chat going on in there. We'll give you kind of wee advanced warning of stuff we're doing on the podcast, and you get a direct line to us with any questions and stuff as well. You may notice we're wearing matching t-shirts, Ian and I, tonight. Our Manscaped shirts. That's because we are being supported by Manscaped during the Autumn Internationals. Manscaped are new to the UK. They produce male grooming kits and male grooming items for your intimate areas. I think that one of the quotes was from your bush to your tush. I think seemed very American. So if you go to manscaped.com and then you enter the code SRP, you can get 20% off and free shipping as well. Now, Ian, I will make it clear, I don't go in for this. My mum listens to this podcast. She was a bit upset last week because she misheard and thought I was trimming. But no, it's not something I've ever gone in for. I think you've given it a whirl. Found it okay.
Yes, I've embraced my inner Dr. Evil, and for the first time, because I'm a fairly hirsute man as it is, so there's been the odd little clip here and there on the roof, but no, this is the first time I've gone to the bone, as it were.
How fresh? Feeling fresh?
Yes, I have to say, I mean, this would have been really handy for when I was on holiday last year. It was like 30 degrees Celsius. It's like stoating about New York, just like everything is sweating and uncomfortable.
Well, there you go. You've also found an alternative use for was it the ball toner you found an alternate use for, or the freshness spray?
It's the spray, the ball spritz. Is that the?
I've got it here. They sent us these wee packs with everything in, and you can buy these packs on their website, but you can buy the individual items as well. So let's have a look. It's a
very nice wash bag, isn't it?
It's a lovely wash bag. So we've got it's Crop Reviver.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the spray one.
Yeah, the spray one. What have you and John have been using for that? Something unusual?
Yeah, me and John have been having a jam. I've started playing bass for the first time.
Musical jam. We'll make that clear when we're talking about manscaping.
Yeah, this isn't the. Ooh. So I've been playing bass, and John is he's behind the skins, thumping away, and obviously there's a bit of friction that comes on the hand. So we've been using we used the spray on our hands as sort of like moisturizer, and it was very effective. It was cooling because I thought essential oils and all that should be good for the inflammation and the reddening. Yes, it was. Yeah. So there you go, Manscaped. It's not
Manscaped. This is the wee thing. You get the wee trimmer. I've used it on my face, and it's quite gentle. I have to say, it worked as a wee. It's got a USB charger, so it's quite handy for taking away. I will make it clear though that we've talked about male body image on the podcast before. I will make it clear we're not. If you don't want to manscape, you don't have to. Don't feel under pressure. Do you? If you want to keep things nice and trim,
do your friends if you want. Have a party.
If being trimmed downstairs makes you feel all powerful and sexy, then fair play. But also, if you like to embrace your inner and outer hairy bear, then that's also That's also cool with us. Ian, I've got a quiz for you. Do you think ladies prefer their male partners smooth like the skin of a butternut squash, or as hairy and wild as Donkey Weir's mop?
I'll go with the former, the butternut squash
The
analogy.
butternut squash. Well, 80 to 90% of women prefer some amount of grooming, but only 16 to 20% of women wanted everything completely smooth.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to, keep up this regimen. We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. Well, I didn't have any stats for didn't have any stats for gay men. I did try to find that out because we should obviously gay men will have their preference as well. I did find out scientists were doing research into why gay men preferred men with beards, and that was it was inconclusive. Apparently, the stats are there, so I assume I would assume from that gay men also prefer some hair on their male partners as well.
Hair on there, perhaps.
Yeah, the main thing is find other people find attractive as confidence. So do whatever it is that makes you feel sexy and confident.
Yeah.
But yeah, go Manscaped for 20% off with the code SRP.
Make yourself feel like you're in a tampon advert.
Have you been off rollerblading with a couple of Dalmatians, Ian? Have you?
Absolutely, with my balls blowing in the breeze.
Yeah. So, if you don't want us to hear us talk about manscaping during the autumn test, the best way to do that is to sign up for the Patreon, because I cut the spit out of that because they pay for ad free, so we don't put that bit in the Patreon. So,
and the rest of all the best stuff.
I know exactly our best chat in this section. Anyway, on with the news. The Women's Six Nations has been cancelled. Well, no, the remainder of it's been cancelled. England have been crowned champions, so it's not been cancelled. But all remaining Scotland games have been cancelled. The one against Wales and the one against Italy. Disappointing.
Yes, it is very disappointing.
It is disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've been trying to think about, why is it the case they've had to cancel it? Sort of is it harder to do track and trace? To be honest, I think it's probably just Rugby Europe can't afford it.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, that's probably what it comes down to. I mean, the quote they put out said, recent government and health authority restrictions affecting squad preparations, travel, and the ability to stage matches in competing nations in line with the sport's amateur status have made the successful completion of the 2020 championships impossible. They said they explored every option to get the game played. I think because amateur sport's been cancelled, I think that's what's done it. I think the frustrating thing is it's not clear whether or not they've tried to get an exception, rather than just say, well, it's amateur sport. We'll go whatever the government decisions are. But I suppose a couple people pointed out, although they were men, predominantly men were giving me reasons why it shouldn't go ahead. No women in my mentions when I said it's a shame. We're getting in touch saying no, it's probably okay. It was all men. But somebody did point out that actually, if it is amateur status and people have jobs that they have to go to in the week, then potentially it might pose difficulties in creating bubbles unless you have an employer that's willing to, I don't know, give you the time off, and you've got the SRU are going to pay you, top your wages up, or cover your costs while you're in a bubble.
Yeah, give you your own little sort of private cubicle to work in, and
Yeah.
not touch anyone else. Like total bubble boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a way could have been found around it. It seems like a bit like it's a bit too hard. It doesn't look great when the men's games are going ahead, I think.
It's kind of like that the Ireland Canterbury promotional shoot furore.
Yeah.
They just had the female models rather than players. But then Canterbury, they said that was due to the virus and the lockdown, that they couldn't arrange a shoot properly. So that's sort of twice that the virus has played havoc with the women's game. And it's a shame for Scotland, obviously, coming off the back of that really good result against France. Go Wales with a bit of confidence, but
we had a good chance, like we said a couple of weeks ago. We said had a chance to finish mid-table potentially for the first time in a while, and finish above. But I mean, I think they have, as things stand. If they're cancelling as of now, they're in a good position. it's just, it's a shame it can't go ahead. The World Cup qualifiers for 2021 have been postponed. There's a good article on the Offside Line, actually, that I think David Barnes has written, looking at potential options for what they could do and arguing that actually expanding the World Cup is probably the answer, because then you wouldn't have to play these quite so many qualifying matches if you admitted another few teams to so that potentially that might be the answer.
Yeah, and also, if all the teams are sort of in the same area, it's easier to do the bubbles and keep everyone safe.
Yeah, you would hope by then. I think this is happening. I forgot to check the date of this, but you would hope by the time I think the Reaper charge, which is where the qualification for the 2021 World Cup is
That's
in
one of my favourite words.
Reaper. Am I pronouncing it right?
Repechage.
Repechage.
Yeah, because me and my mum used there's always repechages at the Olympics for the rowing and stuff. And the commentator always gets quite posh about it. And Great Britain will go into the repechage. It's just such a comforting word to say.
I know, it sounds like something it sounds like a term from fencing.
It does so.
So anyway, that it's worth checking out that article on the Offside Line, which kind of goes through all the different permutations of what might happen. You would certainly hope by Easter we might be in a better position. Speaking of which, the SRU this week announced their ticketing structure, which we'll probably come back to Hands in the Ruck a little bit. Probably not in the way people are expecting mine, but it's you have to have your Nevis membership, which costs you £34 to be in with a chance of a ballot. The ticket prices are £55 for the cheapest tickets for Italy and £90 for the most expensive. And for Ireland and Wales, it's £70 the cheapest and £105 the most expensive. So there's only 2 tiers of tickets, Ian, for the whole stadium. I think there's yellow and white codes.
Which is a bit odd because you've seen as, in Scotland, I think they had 3 or 4 different categories, and that's a lot smaller.
Yeah. They've said they're going back to the statement that they really said they will go back to normal categories once everybody can get back in the stadium. So I think the reason they're doing this is they don't know how many people they can get in, so they've simplified it so that if you say you can only get half the stadium in or quarter of the stadium in, then you just price according to wherever they can get people a socially distanced seat.
Aye.
You might get to sit where Princess Anne sits for £105. Those seats are. You could. Depending on where you get your seats, you're either going to end up overpaying or underpaying. You might get one of the nice heated seats.
Would it be near? You could be near the press pack.
You could be.
All of us with our laptops spread out, try to squeeze past each other. Kicking power leads out. Oh, sorry.
Cursing every time the people in the posh seats stand up and you can't see what's happening.
Shouting swear words beside you, Dan. Oh, sorry, Hugh. That's just personal experience.
Yeah, so they have also announced that 10% of stadium capacity, whatever that is going to be made to clubs, and that's apparently what the normal uptake is for tickets is 10%, which is lower than I thought it was. I think lower than a lot of people suspected it was. But 10% of what is the question? It was 10% of 1,000. That's what, 100 people? Yeah, which is like one person per club probably. And
you have to fight to the death to get the ticket.
That's it. We'll do a repechage for who gets the tickets. The debentures program is also still suspended. So we'll talk about this more in we'll talk about this more in Hands in the Ruck, I think, because people have got various views on this. Alan McDonald says Hugh Dan's a shinty man. He's probably heard worse bilingually.
Alan's met me, so I don't know if that's Alan should know that's not true. The filth that comes out of my mouth.
Maybe you need to start to learn some swear words in Gaelic.
In Gaelic, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So the main point for this evening, we'll preview the Scotland Italy match at the weekend, or Italy Scotland, because it's away in
Stadio Artemio Franchi.
Well, I'm glad you can say it. 12:45 Saturday. It's live on Amazon Prime. Again, we'll get to that in Hands in the Ruck. You can get a 30-day free subscription. Actually, a lot of local rugby clubs seem to have been offered a kickback from Amazon if you subscribe through a special link. So there's a few of them. If you dig around Twitter and see some of the Scottish rugby local clubs, if you are thinking of signing up, try and find a link through one of them because they get a little bit of money through the affiliates program back for everyone that signs up. So it's 30 days for free, and after that it's £8, and you get some pretty. There's all right telly on there and some films as well. They've got all of the Indiana Jones on at the minute, all of the Back to the Futures plus the Fugitive. So I mean, that's good value.
Yeah, I've got the annual subscription. I keep meaning to cancel it because Jeff Bezos is a horrible profiteering rat. But they do have some good telly. Like the main reason I got it was so I could watch Preacher because I've read all the comics. So yeah, there's some. Although what I found is like everything that's on Amazon, you could maybe think, all right, this might be a sort of Amazon exclusive. Next couple of months later, it'll be on Netflix as well.
No, I know, because I found that I was really worried that Parks and Recs was going to go over to, I think Now TV signed up, and I was worried that in the US office was going to go over, but it's still there. So I assume that they just seem to do a lot of double ups. There's what else has come out? There's a couple of new things coming on Amazon that look pretty decent as well. So
Ian Wallace recommended the History of Rugby or something.
Well, they've got all the All or Nothing All Blacks one.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Is good after the Lions tour, because obviously during the Lions tour they're not allowed to say this, everything's so protective. They don't really say a lot during it, whereas they clearly get a lot more access for the Super Rugby that comes after, and that kind of stuff's really interesting, particularly kind of the pressure that they're under. So yeah, the All or Nothing stuff's good. But yeah, it's good value. I appreciate some people might not be able to afford it in the current circumstances, but from what it could have been, then I think it's better than having to pay for a Sky Day Pass.
Yeah, I mean, there's been people arguing about it and moaning about it, so I will not touch on it too much if we're doing Hands and Rock, but
we'll do it anyway.
It's like
so,
180 quid for my subscription, so I've got Premier Sports and Amazon, so it's about 180 quid for the year.
Yeah.
And that would get me, 2 cheap tickets and train tickets from Glasgow to Edinburgh for a Scotland match. So
yeah, we'll come back to it in Hands in the Rock anyway. Scotland have scored. Ryan Christie, taken goal apparently there. We'll go with Scotland 1-0 up.
Lovely.
So there's a couple of changes to the Scotland team from the one that faced Wales. We've got Sam Johnson in for James Lang. There is Duhan van der Merwe comes in for Blair Kinghorn. Both Lang and Kinghorn drop to the bench. Dunky Weir returns with his magnificent afro. 10, then you've got I think unchanged in the back row. Still got a back row of Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson, Blade Thompson, Roy Sutherland, Stuart McInally, Xander Figures in your front row, and Scott Cummings and Johnny Gray at lock. George Turner comes on the bench. I think now Hornito suffered a toe injury.
Mm-hmm.
Fraser Brown, that's not to do with the injury against Wales, though, is it, Ian?
No, he apparently suffered a head injury in training. There was a scrum collapse, and he felt a bit of a headache. So they ruled him out this weekend. He'll just do the return to play protocols. Townsend said, the day after the incident, which was yesterday, I think the incident happened on Tuesday, he said Brown seemed to be a lot sort of happier and healthier, seemed healthier. So hopefully, he's back soon.
That's good news. The other change, WP Nell comes onto the bench. Who's he coming? Skinner's on. Sam Skinner comes on for Ben Toolis. Now, who was on? Bergen. So WP Nell replaces Simon Bergen. Nick Haining comes on for Cornell Dupree. Was that just rotation then, do you think? Are these just Nell and Haining rotation?
Yes, because there's going to be obviously it's quite a condensed schedule of the most intense type of rugby you'll get. So I think it was rotation, and also Nell won man of the match. He's last out for Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Sam Hildalgo-Klein comes onto the bench after he's kind of, I suppose, a bit of a shock call up because he said himself he wanted to play more rugby.
Yes, but I mean he has. The walking, the sort of wandering gun that he is. He's it seems to be settled at Exeter. Won the Champions Cup, won the Premiership, so obviously very confident.
Yeah,
a bit. Although I mean, I wondered if they ever thought about sticking him as a standoff backup.
Well, I suppose he is, because that's be why Lang's on the bench, and then you've got that option. You know, if you do have, heaven forbid that you end up with both your standoffs injured in the same match again, and then you've got that option that doesn't involve bringing, the cursed hog at 10. Yeah. It's Chloe Stanton. Nels paid himself into the team. I mean, I thought Bergen did all right the last couple of games. It wasn't really necessarily a backward step in the scrum, but it's good to see that kind of reward, I suppose, for form at pro level.
Well, form is temporary, class is permanent. Nels a pretty class act, but yeah, I can't actually remember off the top of my head what Tony was saying, but I think he had been complimenting Bergen, said he was playing well, but Nell has obviously, like Chloe said, played himself into the team with these recent performances for Edinburgh.
I suppose as well, from the age that he is, actually bench is a really good option for now, because he's a good scrummager. So actually, that kind of playing him in the last 20 minutes, you're not risking the fitness angle of it.
He played 70 minutes for Edinburgh, which is pretty good going for a.
Did he? Do we really know whether he did that in the fog?
True. I didn't watch the game. I've not seen all of it yet. I was trying to watch it on Premier Sports and it didn't work. What a surprise. But yeah, no, that was pretty good. I mean, Bergen probably offers more than the loose.
Yeah.
But he's got that scrummaging off his knees technique, which is a bit risky. But yeah, like you said, Nell can just Nell and Kevel, Christ, that's a fair bit of beef coming off the bench.
Yeah. The only thing I suppose that the big question is that obviously they're going for rotation on the bench and a little bit of rotation on the in the main starting 15. But I think that's probably down to the opposition more than anything else. That Kinghorn came on against Wales because he's probably better in the air than Duhan van der Merwe. Whereas actually Duhan van der Merwe running at a kind of shaky Italian defence is probably what we need. But given it's such a packed schedule, you wonder whether it's. I suppose it's only Italy, and I know we've struggled against Italy in the past, but it is only Italy, and could there have been a bit more rotation? I suppose in the starting team, given we've got France up next.
Yeah, possibly. But if we know that the last two times we've played them now,
yes, I think so. Yeah.
But I suppose the guys haven't played a lot of rugby since they came back, so raring to go. You just hope. I
suppose
I
suppose you get there's an argument to say if the game's gone in 50 minutes, if after 50 minutes the game's gone, you just empty the bench to protect Raphog and et al. And Cotton Wool and empty the bench.
If only we'd wrapped Finn in cotton wool before we sent him out last week.
I know.
Or 2 weeks ago.
It's another game in an empty stadium. Now you were at the press conference, and we heard from Hamish Watson about what it was like to play in empty stadiums and kind of how the Scottish team have been dealing with that.
Yeah, it is difficult. I think we're used to it now because we've been playing obviously the first few games for club as well. So we maybe had 6 club games before we went into that Georgia game. I have to say the Georgia game was pretty weird at Murrayfield, like the first international without a crowd. But I think it's one of those things you just got to get over it pretty quick and get used to it, because it's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. Obviously, some good news out today about a possible vaccine and stuff. So who knows where we'll be come Six Nations time. But right now, it is what it is, and you've just got to try and get on with it, really. So build the buzz within the team and build your own atmosphere, sort of thing, which I think you could see in that Wales game, that the boys were trying to G each other up whenever they could because there was no crowd, obviously.
Now that's interesting, because I was speaking to somebody who was at the game in Wales who said that there's actually an article on Wales Online from someone that was there as well, just how quiet the Welsh bench was and how much noise was coming from the Scotland bench, that they're doing this thing of creating their own atmosphere, that they were cheering every penalty from the bench and making this noise. I actually thought that the crowd noise in the Wales game was being piped in because it sounded so kind of faint and in the background, but apparently it wasn't. Because at one point there was a hymn, and I thought it sounded like it was coming from the PA, but that was all on the telly, so all the noise inside the ground was being generated by the Scotland players on the pitch, I think Stuart Hogg talked about that as well. That's something he's kind of brought from Exeter, because they've maybe had more game time than the Scottish pro teams. This idea of creating their own buzz, creating their own momentum, and their own kind of noise from the bench and from within as well. I suppose it's a new thing, isn't it, having to deal with them playing in an empty stadium, and it's not like Scotland to kind of think about these things. Really, it's not something we'd expect Scotland to think about.
Yeah, there's been talk about. I actually listened to the podcast last week. It's very good. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who was it? I can't remember what player it was, but they've been talking about how they create their own energy, because usually you can get that off the crowd. Scotland have a good bit of play. The Murrayfield goes a bit. That noise kind of rises up. So they thought about creating their own energy, and they seem to be doing that by just shouting at each other and slapping each other on the ass.
Yeah, and nothing builds energy like men slapping each other on the ass.
So I hear.
Yeah, go manscaped.com and enter SRP. Make sure that you've got a smooth bum when it's spanked by another man.
Yeah, it's getting slapped. Put some of that crop reviver on your ass.
Obviously, to lose one world-class fire half is unfortunate. To lose two seems like, I don't know. I've lost my Oscar Wilde. It's gone from my head. There is an Oscar Wilde quote in there from The Importance of Being Earnest, but it's gone. I suppose it's that thing of, we're down to Duncan Weir now, his third choice. But, and it's picking up on what me and John were speaking about that Wales victory last week, Scotland don't need, the way Scotland are playing at the minute, it's not the kind of high risk, high reward rugby that we maybe saw in that 39-all draw against England, or even the game the year before against England, where it was all about intercepts and throwing risky passes that would come off and open up defences. It's built on a foundation of strong defence and only taking the chances when they come. And I'm not saying we don't need Finn Russell, because he's in a class of his own, but I'm not as concerned, I think, as I would have been 12 months ago in Duncan Weir starting, because his style of play probably fits in quite well with what Scotland are trying to do at the minute.
Yeah, now the fastest rugby in the world mantra has been dropped.
Yeah.
Townsend was saying as well, like the Artemio Franchi Stadium, the pitch is, because it's a football pitch, it's shorter and narrower than Murrayfield. It's about 5 metres narrower, and I think about the same in length. So he does expect there to be, to utilise the kicking game quite a bit. And obviously, it's one of Weir's forties. Because I remember a stat from when he was at Glasgow. I think it was 2015. It would have been, because it was just before the Ulster match, which got Glasgow into the semi-final against Ulster. Right. Yeah, and I'd met Pete Horn, and Pete Horn said that he'd only touched the ball like 12 times because Duncan Weir was kicking it so often. So might be a bit of a waste of Sam Johnson's talents if he doesn't get on the ball as much. But no, I think Weir's, he said he's playing confident. He's playing the best rugby of his career probably. He's more laid back nowadays, he says, and I think he'll do a fine job. Worcester aren't a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but he seems to be one of their star men, and he's obviously playing at a high level every week. So I think he'll go fine, and he'll do it for the Shire of Cambuslang and representing Cathkin High. There we go. Local.
Yeah, Martin Belzas says, did Oscar Wilde describe Adam Hastings as world class? He thought it was Phil Godman. I forgot if it was world class Phil.
Parks.
That was, yeah. The only worry, I guess, is where do we go after Duncan Weir? Because after that, the cupboard is bare. I mean, you've got James Lang, who I don't think has played much. He's played a bit. He has played a bit of 10, and I think he is a fly half centre. Then after that, you're looking at either calling up a 23-year-old or Stuart Hogg or Sam Hidalgo-Klein, and really start. There's a lot of round pegs and square holes after that.
Even George Horn, his Twitter handle.
That's the dream. That's the dream, isn't it?
George Horn 10. So I think
George Horn at 10.
He has played standoff, I think, maybe a couple of times for Hawks. Certainly, was he at Howe Fife before? I think he was.
He would be. Yeah, he's from Howard Fife.
But Pete paid for them, so as long as they weren't on the bus with the beer bottles, they should be fine.
You're going to get me in trouble with Johnny McGinty. Don't get me in trouble with Johnny.
I was already there. I hadn't sent his tie back, but I definitely have it sent.
Yeah, so that it's a worry, I suppose, because Finn Russell's back for the Six Nations, I think, if it goes ahead, which you'd expect it would do, but that after that, I mean, someone pointed out that, Jacob van der Walt becomes available at the end of the Six Nations after he's out of self-isolation from his wedding. I think there's some debate about whether it's Fiji or the last game that he's eligible for. Is it just in time for Fiji, I think?
I can't remember. Well,
it's definitely not France. I think he's out. He's out of quarantine in time for France, but I don't think he's eligible to play until Fiji.
Right, because when Townsend was mentioning it, he said it was either Fiji or France, because even he didn't know. So if the national team coach doesn't know, then what chance have we got? I think it might just be the last game.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a worry. I think other than that, I'm not, for the first time in a long time, probably not that worried about facing Italy.
Yeah, I mean, because after we'd lost the first two games this year, I was a little bit concerned about going over there, but then, we dealt with them pretty comfortably. I
think an efficient performance is probably the best way to describe it.
I thought the first half, especially against England, they were very good. They were getting right in their faces. They were, doing this sort of Maro Itoje on Maro Itoje, which was always good to see. And obviously, Pelledri is a great player, but we'll need to play Subway sweepstakes, because they always mention the fact that he used to work on a Subway.
Yeah.
And as we've said Subway a few times now, that counts as advertising, so send us sandwiches.
Well, I think if you say, is it like Candyman, where you say Subway 7 times and you get a foot long?
Foot long, but here's wage. I didn't want that bread. Oh, no.
Chloe's alleging us saying that we've jinxed it. I don't think we have. I mean, they were. People have talked a lot about how good they were against England in the early moments, but I think every team, when you watch teams like the All Blacks against poor opposition, and they don't tend to pull away until the second half in most cases. And I think that's just the way that rugby tends to pan out, and probably is. I think you come to expect that you're just going to run try after try after try after poor opposition, but it's always a case of stretching defenses and kind of grinding it out for the first half. And it's only really in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, that you really start to kind of run away with it.
Yeah, it's like they're just sizing them up. And obviously, the longer the game goes on, the more fatigue sets in and the more likely mistakes are to be made. Because we've seen the sort of the increase and the improvement in sort of lesser nations, shall we say? Like if you go back to Rugby World Cup, I think did New Zealand play Namibia at one point, or was that the last?
Yeah, I think they have done. Yeah,
and I don't think you'd normally sort of you'd have feared for Namibia like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. You'd have thought that's probably going to be 100 points, no bother from New Zealand. But they actually I think they held them at about 50, 60.
Yeah.
Definitely improvement.
Did this guy, he scored a try against them as well, did they?
They did. They definitely did get a try.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's, I don't think we need to, I think we can, the defense is fine. I think we need to stop worrying about jinxing Scotland now. The defense is fine. I do think we need to not get ahead of ourselves and look too far ahead at winning streaks for Scotland. I think there is a potential winning streak, record beating for Scotland winning streak in sight, but I think that's getting ahead of ourselves. I think we take one game at a time. I think Italy should be a formality. After that, who knows?
Indeed.
Yeah.
It could hinge on weather conditions, because Scotland have had two absolutely manky games this year.
Yep.
And
it's France next. It's the whole thing of what France turns up. I mean, we know it was the punchy France that turned up against us last time at Murrayfield. We don't know if is it punchy France or new improved chuck it about France.
Well, Intimac managed to stay on the park longer than 10 minutes this time. Because obviously he's pretty handy. We all know how good Dupont is.
Not as good as Ali Price, as we proved with stats and facts last week.
Stats, yes, the slow man that is Antoine Dupont. And of course, there, oh man, Gregory Aldrit. I'm not calling it Aldrit, it's Aldrit, all right, because he's Scottish. We could do him. He'd be brilliant, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Because I think he topped the carry stats this year.
Yeah, he did. I think he was high in the dominant tackles as well, whatever that means. He was high in the dominant tackle stats as well. So Scott Cummins was actually quite high in those stats as well. Scott not normally appear on those stats, but I think Scott Cummins kind of crept into the bottom of the top 5, I think.
Yeah, he gets through a lot of work.
Yeah, he does. Right. I have nothing more to say about Italy because I think we'll win, and I think it might be tense while we're watching it, but I think given the cold light of day, we'll be talking next week about a comfortable win and looking ahead to France. I will apologise in advance if I've jinxed that, but I don't really believe in jinxes, so there. We've got a very special one of these now.
Well, we're looked high and we're looked low, single goodbye on in speedos, but I just wanna know, did you see the legend that's Dougie Donnelly?
Yes, it's Where's Dougie Donnelly. We've got a special Donkey Weir Where's Dougie Donnelly from Martin Bell on our super secret social media group. He said he saw Donkey Weir in the Lothian Road Nando's ordering a takeaway during a period out injured when he was at Edinburgh a few years back. And as a bit of extra detail, I did ask Martin what was his source of choice. Martin said it looked like extra hot peri-peri, as befits someone who is always on fire on the park.
Maybe that's made his hair go curly.
Maybe that's what makes it stand on end. Like, yeah. I suggested earlier in the week that he looked like Marv from Home Alone and Home Alone 2. Especially after he gets shocked by the taps in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
I haven't seen the second one for quite some time.
To my mind, slightly better than the first. No, the better. Really? I think the Home Alone 2 Lost in New York is better. I mean, it's got Tim Curry in, which instantly makes it better. It's got Rob Schneider in, which takes it down a little bit. But and it has got Donald Trump in as well, which also kind of counts against it. But he's only in very briefly. I think he asked him for direction to the lobby because it was his hotel they filmed it in. But essentially, it's all the same beats of the original one, but it's in New York. He gets chatted up by a couple of prostitutes at one point, which, remembering it's a kid's film at Christmas, always seemed a little bit out of place.
It was the 90s. Different time, man. Different time.
Different time, different things, yeah. This is the problem now. I have to watch all these things in advance now. And I think I'm going to show stuff to my kids. And then I can't remember watching I got halfway through something the other day and I was like, this isn't appropriate at all.
I always remember, like, in primary school, we were getting read the Jungle Book. And then the teacher had to she started reading it and it's like, okay, we're going to have to stop there. Because there was a racial epithet.
Well, that's what it was. Roald Dahl. I've been reading Roald Dahl to our eldest, who's 6, and some of the language in there is not. It's not the kind of language you use now. I mean, the stories as a whole are all right, but there's a couple of bits just like I wouldn't say that in that way. I mean, there's a couple of bits about gypsies and stuff, and you're like, it's not, kind of find yourself wincing and trying to rephrase things as you read, kind of like sub-editing on the fly as you're reading the book.
Why have you stopped the story, Daddy? Thinking.
Daddy needs to think about what word he needs to replace here for mental illness. Yeah. So yeah, that's that's Where's Dougie Donnelly. So have you seen anybody out and about? Although, I'm in England, so we're in lockdown. But I understand conditions are different in the Socialist Republic of Scotland. So if you see anybody out and about that's loosely associated with Scottish rugby, let us know. And the more mundane, the better. And we'll read out the best ones. The more detail, the better as well. We don't want to know that you've just seen someone walking down the street. What were they carrying? What were they doing? Where were they headed?
And if you see Sean Maitland, it's no big deal because everyone's seen him.
everyone's seen Sean Maitland. We'll come to that hands in the ruck in a minute as well. Okay, we're going to move on now, and we are going to do this.
Hands in the rock, who has got their hands in the rock? Hands in the rock, hands in the rock, who has got their hands in the rock?
Yes, it's hands in the ruck time. We're not covering the 2 Scottish Pro games. One, because nobody could see the Edinburgh game. So if anybody's managed to analyse that, then good luck to them. And the Glasgow game, well, the only thing I could think of was talking again about why Irish teams are able to produce youngsters that are able to come on the pitch and play straight away. But we talked about that a couple of weeks ago in the podcast, so we'd just be repeating ourselves. So we're just going to... There's a match report for the Glasgow... I mean, that was like... You know that... What's that monk that Paul Bettany plays in the film with Tom Hanks that was based on the Dan Brown novel?
Oh, yeah.
He self-flagellates himself all the time. That kind of... I was reading your match report, Ian, on the Glasgow game, and that kind of felt like what it was. That's what I brought to mind.
Yeah, that was... I started watching that the other week there. It was rubbish.
Oh, sorry, the book's terrible.
I like Tom Hanks as well, but that sucked.
Silas, Chloe coming in straight. This is why it's great to have live listener comments, because whereas before we used to do these podcasts live, we'd just be like
who was
mumbling
that?
on for us. Who was that?
You go and Google it. One of you go Google it, and we'll fill in. It's just Glasgow just soft.
Yeah.
Every time Ulster got not even in the 22, just in the Glasgow half, it's just every carry there's eating up the meters, and you're like, this is a foregone conclusion. They're going to get over the line at some stage.
It's the fact that, like, I think I said in our group chat, I was saying, it's the same thing. It's youngsters that are too, wet around the ears, and why are we not producing? And then you're like, well, Ryan Wilson's playing, and you look at the team and you think, actually, there's a spine of an experienced team there, and they shouldn't be getting beat like that by Ulster. And Ryan Wilson at the start of the international window was talking up his chances of getting back in a Scotland shirt. And there's no chance of that happening now, is there?
So I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I heard rumours about Cully. We know that Cully's moving to Washington.
Old Glory DC,
Glory
yes,
DC.
as a player coach.
And I hear tale that Danny Wilson just didn't fancy Cully. Just he didn't want him in the team, and then why do you not want to keep the captain? That's mad. And Wilson, I struggle. I mean, obviously Wilson's been a favourite of like Vern Cotter and Townsend, so there's a lot of sort of maybe sort of dark arts and sort of particularly defensive work. I think he probably gets picked for. But you're starting to look at it and go, what do you actually bring to the team?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. You select it's the old management thing of it's probably the most, and I mean this in a complimentary way, one of the most disruptive influences on the team, because he's loud, he's probably outspoken, brash guy, and you need to have him on board, because I would imagine he would have a lot of influence on, good and bad, a lot of influence on the individual players. So you make him club captain, but to give yourself a sense of, want to give him responsibility to make him back up what he's saying, and also to kind of bring him under control a little bit. But that works if he's also one of your better players, but it stops working if he's not play. If you're getting spanked by Ulster like that, you can't just pin it on the youngsters when you got a spine of a team of internationals there. Experienced players like Pete Horn in the team. You got Nicky Matawalu in that team. It's not
Ricky Pierretto got his first start. He's been like 25 times capped by Argentina. And as well, it's just the compounding of mistakes. Like when Glasgow started to find a wee bit of football, they're already like 18 points down at this point. And then you've got Pete Horn like kicking out in the full. Just his experience, and it wasn't even just like a wee bit out in the full; it was miles out. It was a duff kick. It just sends Glasgow back like 50 meters. So you need these experienced guys to actually up their game, and they should be driving the standard for the young people.
Yeah.
But instead, if they're just looking over, they're like, oh, there's Peter made a mistake, there's Ryan Wilson screwed something up. So it wasn't pleasant viewing. I will not be watching it again.
No. I mean, Tom Gordon, bless him.
Mm.
He's the standout player for Glasgow at the minute, I think, and that's why he's in and around the Scotland squad. But it's also a shame that he's playing the way he is in a
Duff side.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move. Well, I'll not cause you too much more pain. We've got quite a few hands in the ruck this evening. Gavin Smith got in touch via email, so you can email us podcast@scottishrugbyblog.co.uk, and I'll pick that up. He said his hands in the ruck was the Scotland team not singing the correct words to Flower Scotland. So I'm going to quiz you now, Ian. No, I said to Gavin, I said I wasn't really paying attention because my main focus was anybody going to say going to go against who, and also the other one that some sections of the crowd will shout. So
the suggestion that Edward's men liked self-pleasuring.
That's the one, and also there's the one that's at the end of the Greg Laidlaw and Finn Russell drunken sing-song, just like the little coda at the end. The worst of all swear words shouted out at the end magnificently. So I've got a quiz for you, Ian. I'm going to test you on this. Gavin has given us the correct lyrics. I will say that two of these I already knew when I thought about them. One of these surprised me. So, what word comes before "we can still rise now"? Is it for or but?
I think it's but.
It is but. You're correct. Well done.
That's good. That's what I've been singing.
Right. And before the words "nation again," is it a or the?
I thought.
No.
Is
it's
it the?
Right, I've double verified this. I've done a proper Mastermind verification check on this. I met one of the researchers for Mastermind, and the research that goes into those questions, they buy books and they have to triple check all the answers for Mastermind. It's amazing.
They don't just go on Wikipedia.
I was like that. I was like, do you not just Wikipedia? And he was like, no. Well, we have a team of researchers and they have expenses to buy books.
What dance school did Nick Herring attend?
He said, he also said that when they had Adam Jones on Mastermind, who did the British and Irish Lions, and I was like, did he not do the tour that he was on? And like, he wanted to, but we wouldn't let him. Answer questions about the Lions tour that you were on. As though
Who did
I
you
was
share
like,
a room with on the Lions tour?
I was like, as if you'd remember any of it. So you'd be better off asking about the one he was on. He probably wouldn't know much. The last one is it, what word comes before stood against him? Is it and or that? It's a tricky one, this one, isn't it? Ian coming away. And in or that stood against him. And stood against him or that stood against him. No, it's that. That stood against him. Alan McDonald's in there.
Yes.
You thought like that. That stood against him. So yeah, the nation again. That I don't.
The nation is.
Yeah, be the nation again. So there you go. It's not a nation. Be the nation again. So yeah, that was Gavin Smith. He also said that apparently because of the way it's played in the pipes, part of it sounds wrong, and so everyone's just come to think of the melodies being a certain way.
Yeah, I remember somebody say like the note.
It's the note of that. The note on that is wrong on the pipes, I think. So we all sing it wrong. Gavin plays, but Gavin knows more about musical. I play tuba, but because anybody that knows brass bands will know that anybody in the back row playing tuba knows nothing about musical theory. We just play what people put in front of us. It's like Ron Burgundy on the little cue. You put a sheet music in front of me, I'll play it. If you start asking me to play a certain note, I've got no idea. So the other one is Hamish Allen. People hand wringing about Donkey Weir. I saw somebody today asking why Cammy Redpath hasn't been called up, and I nearly lost it.
Aye. I mean, yes, I saw that also.
We're always looking for the next kind of great white hope, and it's just that I don't.
Like, the guy was going on about like he's some kind of superstar. He isn't.
No, it's like remember when everyone was absolutely convinced that Tommy Allen was the answer to our present number 10, who's starting on the bench.
Or Tom Heathcote, who'd be when we started googling this and getting really depressed because it's quite a sad story.
He's got concussion and had to give up.
Yeah, I mean, Redpath. He doesn't even play that regularly for his club side.
He doesn't play regularly for his club. He's been called into an England camp before, and he's committed to England. He's also qualifies for France by birth because he was born in France. I don't think, God knows, I mean, somebody might correct me on this. I don't think he's actually ever lived in Scotland. The only connection to Scotland is his dad, which is, I'm not saying that's not a connection as such, but, I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he's born and raised, born in France, but, raised in England, then he's probably more likely to feel English than Scottish.
Yeah, he might do. Alan McDonald's calling him up. He says, "Is the next white hope not a wee bit problematic these days, Cammy?" I don't know if he's. I mean, it's problematic if we're referring to Cammy Redpath. It is probably all problematic given the choice of words as well. So I'll apologise for that. But yeah, I mean, it's not. There's always another player, isn't there? There's always another. Is it Martin Bell says? Is it time to mention Finlay Christie?
I was just about to say something about Finlay Christie. Good thinking, Martin. Or Velicott.
Ben Velicott, yeah. So it's called. Everyone's got these wee lists, haven't they, of Scottish qualified players, and almost like it's a bit like sitting next to somebody who's. It's a bit like going to a record collector's fair, and everyone's after the original copy of something, or they've got a slightly better version of a record than you have, and it just feels all a bit seedy. And we've got the players we've got. These guys have,
and they're better than Cammy Redpath.
No. I mean, he's gone from. He's young. He might yet play for Scotland. We don't know, but at this moment in time, he's not available.
Oh yeah, I did that conversion earlier, by the way. The euros thing, was it €6?
Yeah, €6.
Yeah, £5.40.
Oh, Hamish Allen, you legend.
You can
there you
buy
go.
yourself a finger of fudge with that extra 40 pence.
Yeah. Chloe says, remember when people Robbie Fruin had a Scottish granny? Much evidence for that as voter fraud. Yeah, every time that's the first thing anybody asks when a player gets signed for Glasgow and Edinburgh is like, are they Scots qualified? Remember when everyone was really disappointed when Brandon Thompson was tied because he played an under-20s game from South Africa? Well, there's a narrow escape, isn't there?
Yeah. In the same tournament that Van der Merwe was playing, but because Thompson played against another team whose under-20s were the capturing team, that's the sort of loophole. It's quite bizarre.
Mad.
But he's playing again for Glasgow because there was a game against Dragons last year where he had an absolute honker, and his confidence plummeted. Last one played Super Six a couple of times, and even that looked like a level above him. But hopefully he'll get back to form.
Hopefully. The next one we've got Peter Foster and Rhiannon McCrory. I did say we'd come back to this. Had the same hands in the ruck. And it's people who've only just realised, this is Rhiannon's one, but it's the same point as Peter made, was people have only just realised that people not paying to attend rugby games all season has a financial impact and is almost certainly behind the Amazon Prime deal, because obviously the backroom staff at Murrayfield work for Magic Beans and Honour or Exposure. I mean, I can't comment on the Magic Beans thing. I don't know what people at the SRU get paid. They may well get paid in Magic Beans. I don't know if that was part of Magic Mark Dodson's bonus was paid in Magic Beans. Don't know what's at the top of the beans. Always keep reaching for the top of the beanstalk. But I think this is a valid point, and this kind of brings back into the tickets. The tickets that we talked about as well earlier on, and the prices is that we're not living in normal times. The tickets have been released with a view to it being a half-full stadium or having nobody there at all. You pay. They made it very clear when people paid for the Nevis membership that you were paying for an opportunity to bid for tickets if crowds were allowed. And that was made very clear up front. So it's really frustrating to people. I'm paying money towards the SRU. It's like, yes, you are paying money towards the SRU because the SRU have got the begging balls out. They need the money because if you don't pay them, then rugby will cease to, they can't pay the players. And then rugby ceases to exist. And, at the minute, international rugby is what's funding the rest. It's funding grassroots, it's funding the pro game. Until you can get bums on seats, until you can get proper... And that's why they've signed up with Amazon as well, because at the minute, they're the biggest game at town in terms of finance and sport. And they're not small as well. Yeah, Scotland, if Serbia have equalised.
90th minute, Serbia have equalised.
Oh, 'twas always thus. Rugby and football, it's always the same. But yeah, it's we need the money. That's the bottom line here. And Amazon aren't small. I think people are complaining about Amazon, but they're not a small player here. They've had the US Open. They've had some big sport and
got the Australian Open as well. I think.
Yeah.
They've got quite. I think they've got ATP Masters too as well. So they've got a fair bit of tennis coverage. They've dipped their toes into football recently, and we know they've got money. So geese it.
Gives them. Show me the money.
Was it you? Was it on last week's podcast or someone I'd heard? I believe that there's likely to be redundancies at the SRU.
I think
that's rumours I'm hearing.
I think we were. I don't think there's been an update. I think we were talking a couple of weeks ago saying Mark Dodson was confident that if the Six Nations went ahead with crowds, I think his view was that they could avoid making redundancies. So that's what your money's going to. If you are unhappy about paying, top whack for your ticket to Murrayfield, the reason you're paying that ticket is so that they can still fund development officers who'll go and find the next Darcy Graham. So they can still, fund the marketing team who will get bums on seats and fill the boxes when people can come in, who will, generate the interest in the game. As much as we can be cynical about it all, but at the same time, all these jobs are necessary to grow the game within Scotland and to fill Murrayfield and to keep the game running. And we don't want that to go. And I'm sure there's, like any organisation, there's probably some positions that can go in time, when times are lean, but at the same time, you don't want it to go. I'd rather that people didn't lose their job. I'd rather we went into bed with Amazon and people paid £8 a month or £105 for a ticket and a half empty stadium and people kept their jobs than, people pay less than that.
About £8 and then some of these, can't feed their kids.
Yeah. So I think that's what's been frustrating. I think that people's frustrated. I understand why people are upset that tickets are more expensive than they were expecting, but I think it needs to be seen in the context of that's not that those prices aren't expecting a full stadium. The fact you can buy a ticket for £105 to sit in the Royal Box. I mean, those tickets are you pay more than £105 to sit in those seats in normal times. So if you potentially get a bargain if you get the heated seat.
Especially when you compare it to the Lions prices.
Well, exactly. Which is utterly ridiculous. So anyway, that's that. Iain, now we've had a few linked. I know what yours is, but we've had a few linked to it. So I think we'll go with yours and then we'll take it from there. And we've got some breaking news, but I'll do yours first and we'll do the breaking news.
All right. So Hands in the Ruck this week is John Kirwan, former All Black, his reaction to the red cards in the Bledisloe Cup. Now, I don't know if you've seen them. He's particularly, he doesn't seem to think that Ofa Tuangafasi's is a red card. He says there's mitigating circumstances that Tom Wright is like dipping into the tackle. Now, Cammy I've taken a screenshot and shown it to Cammy. There's not much dip there, is he? And it's shoulder. It's a shoulder right in the throat. So Kirwan, he's going on about how it's ridiculous. I mean, he says, "Oh, I was so angry, I couldn't sleep," which is just hyperbolic nonsense. And it's a pretty blatant red card. Trying to defend it, and he's now. I've ended up started an argument with someone on Twitter because John Kirwan and this guy agrees with him. They think that there shouldn't be red cards. Basically, punishment shouldn't be metered out during the game. It should be applied retrospectively, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Because in theory, you can just if you've already take someone out, then you're like, oh well, that's me going to be up in front of the disciplinary guys next week. I'll just go smash that guy as well. You've got a holiday booked for the next week. That's fine. No, I mean to suggest that no action should be taken to on-field dangerous play at the time it is nonsensical. It's not, retrospective action is not going to be much of a deterrent. No. And so I just thought it was extremely irresponsible of John Kirwan. He was sort of defending referees and lambasting World Rugby for their decision. But it's all about player safety, and those were very dangerous challenges. They could have caused serious issues, serious injury issues, and for him to try and defend it is absolute nonsense.
I think that's the thing that bothered me was you should. His view at one point, I think he said you should get a yellow card and someone should come out and replace you. Which is just there's no incentive there to to change your behaviour. There was we had a good thread on this on the super secret Facebook group that we've got, where you can tackle and that's been demonstrated. You see, you look at Darcy Graham, some of the tackles he puts it, and you can tackle without smashing people in the face and tackle very effectively and stop somebody. So I know there's all this debate. Well, he dipped into the person with the ball dipped into the tackle. It's like, well, even if they dipped into the tackle, you're still too high. Yeah, if you're hitting them in the face.
Aye, because then you'd be sort of going, if he was stood upright, it'd be sort of chest height. So unless you're looking to stop the offload, but a lot of these aren't. They don't seem to be that. It's just about hitting them as hard as possible. Yeah, and they're getting it wrong and they're causing injuries.
Yeah, that's Martin Bell's point on the comments. And even if young men suffering potential lifelong harm, Sir John does not seem to have grasped that there's a real potential of litigation if rugby doesn't sort out head injuries. So they've got to be seen to be doing it because, from an insurance point of view, someone comes along later and says you didn't do enough to mitigate it. And if it's like, oh well, we did because we gave yellow cards, but someone was able to come on and replace them. It's like, what's the incentive to stop hitting people in the face if you're just going to bring somebody off the bench while you're cycling for 10 minutes on the sidelines?
Yeah, how much have NFL had to do a sort of big, massive payout, didn't they? I think that ran into the hundreds of millions. Yeah. Another thing that pissed me off about John... I've been in a pretty bad mood this week. Another thing that pissed me off about John Kirwan's little rant was he gave it people have paid money to see 15 on 15. It's like, well, they've paid money to see 15 people play the game as according to the laws. Right? If someone's going out with the laws and injuring people, they don't deserve to be part of that 15.
No. And I think even it's Peter Foster pointing out that the fact that bans are getting reduced to good behaviour. I think that's something that probably needs to be cut out now. I don't like this conduct issue. There was that thing with Owen Farrell a few weeks ago where they were like, he does work for charity. That's got absolutely nothing to do with the fact
Jimmy Savile. Not that I'm suggesting Owen Farrell's up to anything like that, by the way, but it's
a low bar.
Argument.
People doing work for charity is a low bar. So, it's ridiculous to suggest. I don't like this character thing, or even just,
previous good conduct. So he's not that kind of player. Well,
he was, and I think that's where's the deterrent? If the deterrent is all you need to do, and I know people get sick of the joke about bringing nice biscuits to the disciplinary hearing, but that's it. If all you have to do is turn up with a record showing pictures of you smuggling off, cuddling orphans. The Freudian slip there. I don't smuggle orphans, by the way. I'm very clear. Pictures of you cuddling orphans and the donkey you rescued. If that's all you have to do every time you smash somebody in the face and you get half. What's the deterrent?
the fact that they said with Farrell's case, like, previous good conduct. Where it's like, well, no, he's got away with murder. There's been no arms tackled by the plenty, which have been, pointed out and shared on social media.
Just because this is the first time he's been caught.
Aye.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good one. Mine is my hands in the nut this week is the hat. Now, have you seen the Amazon Prime adverts, Ian?
Yes. I've seen the Hoggy one. And he's
Have you
he's a bar.
Right. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We'll come to that in a minute. And
he's got stuff advert now as well.
Has he got stuff? They're so low budget. They're so low budget, those adverts. Like and it doesn't make sense that there's one where they're running through an Amazon distribution center, and then I think Semi Radradra crushes an Amazon package as he puts it down, and Nigel Owens blows the whistle and says, "I can't allow that." And I don't know if
that's for the delivery driver.
Well, that's what I was thinking. That's kind of like, I don't know if that's like a self-referential joke by Amazon that sometimes we crush packages, or if it's them saying no, we never crush packages. I couldn't work out what way the joke was going. And some of the other ones, there's two other ones that are doing the rounds at the minute, and one is someone shouts at the TV, "Oh, come on, ref, that was never a foul," like with all the passion of somebody kind of pleading for the firing shot to take a shot at them. It's terrible acting, and I appreciate things are different at the minute because of COVID, and you just can't get the talent these days, maybe. But even the special effects of them bursting through the telly, they've made, and Stuart Hogg does this as well. He bursts through the telly and asks someone for the ball back, and we'll come to this in a minute. When they burst through Nigel Owens and Stuart Hogg burst through the telly, you can see the plastic screen that they've been asked to burst through in real life flapping away. So it not in any way looks like they've burst through a telly. It looks like they've burst through a bit of plastic screen that's flapping away in the wind. And then for some reason, and this is what I want to show people now, for some reason, I think they've dubbed Stuart Hogg to make him Cockney, right? And I can't work out why. So here we go. Like, listen to Stuart Hogg in this clip.
Gives ball back.
He's Cockney. Oi, gives the ball back. Listen again.
Gives ball back.
That's not Stuart Hogg's voice.
Gives ball back.
That's Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins. Oi, Mary Poppins, gives the ball back.
Oh, that's it. Since he's gone down south, he's changed, doesn't he?
Is that his ex?
Gives ball back.
Oi, gives the Indian headdress. Looks a mercy, Mary Poppins. Let's do the tomahawk chop.
Let's not.
Yeah. So, Alan McDonald, God, you're not kidding about the plastic screen. No, I'm really not. If you're watching this live, here you go. One more time for everyone watching at home.
Gives ball back.
It's like he's poking his head through a poorly fitted shower curtain. That's the only way I can describe it. They got like Jeff Bezos is like the world's richest man, and they can't even afford good special effects.
Yeah, a wee bit of CGI there,
Yeah.
And he's got I was saying earlier, he's got a Dove Men. What's their sort of men's range called?
Is it Dove Men Plus or something? Where they do this. I mean, Dove Men have done things with us in the past when they've given away free tickets to Scotland matches, and there's like, I think he does his whole family thing, doesn't he? Where he get like it's kind of like soft, gentle soap for men, soft soap, but also hard soap for men.
Well, you can tell, like he's not in it much, and then there's clearly like a body double used for the close up of him lathering of what's meant to be Hoggy lathering himself in the Dove Men Plus.
How can you tell? Is it because there's no freckles?
Just you'd expect him to be a bit bigger.
How explicit is this advert? Broader.
I mean, it's broader? Like, yeah, because it's sort of like doing his shoulders and that. He'd have bigger deltoids than that. He's quite a well-built lad. It's pretty rubbish.
What is it that Stuart Hogg has got to hide that he insisted on a body double in the shower? I'm saying he's got a conjoined twin on the back.
Well, it's like he's got Klaatu from Total Recall.
Yeah, Alan McDonald saying he's no Sean Lamont. I know Sean does life modelling, but Sean also enjoys the work of David Icke. So the less said about Sean Lamont, the better. On that note, I think that's it for this week. Don't get anything more. Anything more from you, Ian? We done?
No, I thought you'd done that.
I
president thing.
forgot the US president, of course. Yeah. So this is very parochial.
I'd actually kind of forgot.
I'd forgot. Well remembered. I forgot to put my notes. So the big news this week, of course, is there's been a US presidential election. So we asked people to get in touch with us and tell us which Scottish player or coach would make the best US president and why. We had some good contributions to this. I also asked people who they would be what would be the first country they would declare war on. So Martin Bell said Alan Chunk Jacobson, and he would declare war on Trinent, which seems I'm not sure with how concerned the US are with Trinent, but it's a fair call. Peter Foster said Duncan Weir would declare war on Barbers.
Would he?
I don't know. That's a charity thing. I think I've gone with Jim Telfer. I'm not sure who
Firebrand Republican or.
I can't say. Well, he's socialist. He's more left leaning. Jim Telfer. I think kind of it's more that way.
School Labour kind of guy, doesn't he?
Aye. So it's more kind of. I don't know. He'd come from a kind of a strong democratic background. I thought initially he might declare war on Russia just because there'd be the classic tit for tat verbals between him and Vladimir Putin. But I also think there'd be a bit of grudging respect there as well.
Oh, Jim Telfer's like, I look better riding a horse with my shirt off.
I would absolutely 100% think Jim Telfer looks better with his shirt off riding a horse than Vladimir Putin. And I've no doubt that Jim Telfer could probably take a bear out with one punch. There'd be respect
like
there. I think that's it. I think it'd be hard. Russia would struggle, I think, to stand up to that. I think they'd have to be quiet because there'd be a lot of mutual respect back and forward between President Telfer and the rest.
There's a lot of icy stares going on.
I think Rory suggested on the group chat, he said Finn Russell, who would start war against the Republic of Gregoria. for it'd be a trade war over extra beers.
Gonna say the Gregoria's got prohibition. Finn's not having it.
What else do we had? A couple of others. Where's the other one? There was Al Kellogg would Rose said Al Kellogg declaring war on Embra. I did ask people to say kind of declare war on a country. I don't think Embra counts as a country. I know it's quirky and kind of a little bit of an outlier Scotland wise, but Finn Calder would be Abe Lincoln, the first president to offer compassion to a turkey for consoling Brian Moore after the whistle of the 1990 Calcutta Cup. I like that. And Ian Kerr said President Greg Laidlaw who would declare war on Craig Joubert.
And with just cause. Just
cause too. I think I'm all for nuking Craig Joubert. Although I don't know if that would then result in a Godzilla type Craig Joubert that would then wreak havoc on the land. Can you imagine?
Just making bad refereeing decisions everywhere.
I have to get a Steve Walsh Mothra to take him out. And on that niche reference, as always, that's it for this week's podcast. The breaking news I was going to say is as we've been on air, France have announced their squad for the autumn tests. Now, I hadn't realised this, but of course, the French club teams are refusing to release some of their players. So there's no Romain Ntamack, there's no Antoine Dupont. Ian's eyes are widening. So we've got. I'm translating here because it's in France. So the fly halves are Louis Carbonel and Mathieu Jalabert. Your scrum halves are Sebastien Bézi and Baptiste Serran. Centres Pierre-Louis Barassi, Julien Debussy, Olivier Klemenaki. Arrière, I think, is fullback. So we've got Jacques Cordin and Bruce Dulin. I'm assuming this Raka's centre, is that right? Teddy Thomas is centre. Is that right? Or winger?
Tom has a winger usually.
Winger. So this is your wingers. Allier must be winger then. So we've got Aliverietti Raka, Artur Ritteri, Teddy Thomas, and Gamin Villiers. Your front rows, Doran. I'm not even pronouncing these. There's no front rows I recognise. There's nobody I recognise in the forwards at all that would jump out at me. I think, well, he there's trouble. So
But that's weird because there's a couple of Racing players there, but they're not releasing Shah.
nope.
I don't know, but how can the clubs do that? Because this is a recognised.
So this is the squad for this is the identified squad for the game against Scotland on the 22nd November at 4:15 in Edinburgh. It is a significantly weakened France side.
The dream is alive. The momentum.
The dream is alive. Shh. But yes,
Jinxed it.
let's not jinx it. But yeah, by the end of the autumn tournament, we'll be world number ones, just purely through circumstance. 2020 can only get weirder. We can thank French rugby politics for it.
I knew that Majid Boujela will be good for something eventually.
Alan McDonald says we should be very afraid. Depends which France turns up. It's going to be the mad France. It's all the lads too crazy to play in the top 14 that weekend. So yeah,
Jalibert's actually a pretty good player.
He is.
He's a bit.
He's no Donkey Weir.
Absolutely not.
Who is?
There's only one meatball.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about this in more detail next week, no doubt. But there you go. That was breaking news hot off the press as we close for this week. So that is it for this week. Like I said, get in touch on Twitter. I'm at Cammy Black at Scott Rugby Blog. You can drop us an email, podcast@scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. You can also sign up for the Patreon and send us messages that way as well. But for the moment, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Ian.
Cheerio.